Hi everybody, welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. Yet another technically perfect launch to a technically perfect show. We just get better and better as time goes on. Hope everybody's doing well. I seem to be a wee bit overexposed. Let me darken the mood a little bit. There we go. How is everybody doing? Good to see you. Yeah. El Greb says he only comes here for the production values. I hear that all the time. You have no idea. This mostly audience of this show is mostly just engineers, uh, various kinds of media engineers, and you know, show runners and things like that. People who just mostly come for the technical expertise. Uh, but there's a small smattering of other folks out there. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Um, Can we upload the Strato Lounge to Apple Podcast? I don't know. I think we do it to Spotify or SoundCloud or something. We could look into putting them on Apple Podcast. Um, we're going to see about a lot of that stuff. Just earlier, just before we started running the show here, recording the show, person's name I haven't seen before, Quibo2, which is kind of a cool name, said, "Can't wait to see get started on those kind of pop culture channels." I'm looking forward to it as well. But right now, I can't really do it. I've been trying to compress the regular work into as small a time as possible so that I can get this animation finished. This thing is a big project, and I knew it was big, and I finally got out of the forest. So the big fight with the werewolf is done, and if I can get the sound mix back, I'll have that to show next week. If not, I'll have it for the week after that. So what I'm going to basically do is just going to put together the first. The script is I think it's 34 pages, and I broke it down into 6 different chapters. They'll each be about 6-7 minutes each. The first one will be longer, and I'll release the first one to members only as soon as it's finished. Which, as I say, I hope to be, if not next week, then the week after. And I'll keep that members only as we continue to do the animation. And then when we have 3 or 4 of the 6 segments in the can, then we'll release them once a week and just kind of build them up. So anyway, so I am on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, Ghosts. So there's that. 2 weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas. I was in such a big hurry to get all the work done so that I could get out of here on time to keep it a surprise for my lovely wife. We went there 5 years ago exactly, on August 4th and 5th of 2016. Went to Vegas and wanted to keep it exactly the same here. And oh, that's great news, Quibo. Hang on a second. And I got so excited about getting out of town, I forgot to mention no Stratosphere Lounge. So I'm very sorry about that. I know a lot of people were pretty upset expecting the show, and I just plain forgot it. I was on the road to Vegas with my wife, who I love very much. We're on our way to the Bellagio. So that's where I was 2 weeks ago. And then yesterday, I was up in Salinas, stumping for Larry Elder, which you've probably seen on the Facebook page, and I'll try and get that up to the member site too as well. And that was a long drive. It's 4.5 hours up and almost 6 back. But on the way back, we were going to hang out in Carmel for a while, but there's a gigantic auto show. I saw hundreds and hundreds of cars just on. I didn't even go to the show. I just saw hundreds of cars kind of coming in there. So we decided to go. I've been in California since '88, and I've seen virtually all of California, but I've never been to Big Sur. Been to Monterey before and Carmel. So we decided to go south and spend some time down there. It lives up to its reputation. There's a 20 or 30 mile period on the California coast, it's indescribable. It's like you took Sequoia National Forest and moved it to the beach. It's just mind-bogglingly beautiful. Hung out on the beach there for a couple hours and then drove home. And as we're heading home, I looked at the GPS and it realized, yeah, I'm going to have to stay on PCH for the next 70 miles, 70 miles at 30 miles an hour doing all this other stuff. I thought, man, is it going to be faster to go back to Monterey and cut over? No. Turned out to be a beautiful drive. I did not stop at Nepenthe. However, we did stop at Fleischer Beach, I want to say. On the way back home, after driving 40 of the 70 miles, I had enough gas to get to the bottom of PCH with 40 miles to spare, something like that. But I saw a gas station, so I thought, well, all right, let's not stretch our fuel reserves because that's never a really good idea. Um, so I stopped there at the only gas station on that 70-mile stretch of PCH, and I had the honor and the privilege of paying $8.50 a gallon for uh, premium gas. $8.50. I paid $5 a gallon on the way up, just here in Sherman Oaks, but it was $8.50 a gallon up there. Now I understand that when you've got to get gasoline, away from everybody else, that takes extra money, and I was expecting to pay extra. It's $5 a gallon practically in Sherman Oaks. So I was thinking it might be maybe $6.50 if they were in a gouging mood. $8.50 a gallon. Might as well be in Europe, for God's sake. So I bought the minimum amount of gas I needed, just another 3 gallons, just 5 gallons, something like that, to get me for sure out of there. Well, it's absolutely beautiful, but still, it's beautiful, but it's amazing. The Larry Elder event was great fun. Yes, I saw that about the crossover with Doomcock, and I will. He's live now. I should go there after the show. That's great. And he says he's interested in having me on the show. I guess that means he must have heard of me, which is novel these days. But yes, so in fact, that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Made possible. I'm going to go over and talk to Doomcock about the pop culture. But I will do that. So anyway, I don't know if you guys heard of this strange disaster. I think it was Point Lobo, but somewhere right around the turn of the last century, the U.S. had just bought, I want to say, 7 brand new destroyers. Brand new. I mean, just sailing them out on their first mission. And they're coming down the coast, and it's foggy, and the lead destroyer turns. He thinks he's turning into an inlet that he's supposed to be turning into, but he's either too far or too close, I forget which. And in the course of the next 5 minutes, 5 of the Navy's newest destroyers are on the rocks and bashed to pieces. It's an enormous catastrophe. I want to say it's Point Lobo, but Point Honda, maybe? Something like that. One of those little weird pieces of history that nobody knows about. So anyway, it was fun up there talking about Larry Elder, and on one of the shows, it was after the Great White Fleet. It was way after Honda Point. Yeah, it's just one of those things no one's ever heard about. But then the Navy just lost 5 destroyers in 5 minutes on the rocks. So I'm going to actually write that down because it has been noted that every now and then, occasionally, once every 4 or 5 years or so, I sometimes forget to do things that I'm supposed to do. Which I will do. See? Now, I have to tell you, this has, if you didn't know the backstory, that might be a strange sign to hold up. In any event, yeah. So it sounds like fun. So great time in Vegas, a great time up there yesterday, and it sure is a pretty state, and it's worth fighting for. I did close. If you didn't see the, I was able to upload it to Facebook. I wasn't still sure about YouTube, but I closed that talk up there by saying, sure, if we could pull this off, if Newsom is recalled, I think it's pretty clear that Larry Elder will be the next governor of California, and boy, if that happens. So I said, yeah, it'd be great. We all get out there and work hard and get to the polls. We would be able to see the one thing I wanted to see more than anything in my life for the last several years, and that is I would love to see Gavin Newsom out at a restaurant, sitting there with former Governor Cuomo, talking about what it used to be like when they were both governors of the biggest Democratic states and the highest population states in the union. That would be really fun, wouldn't it? Cuomo and Gavin Newsom out on the rocks. That would be something. Thank you, Mobile Moto, who just put down the whole thing I just mentioned. Live stream commentary on Buckaroo Banzai with Critical Drinker. That would be fun too. That'd be a lot of fun. 23 sailors died in that accident I was talking about. I always wanted to see that point, and I'm sure I did see it. I would imagine, it's not a real scuba diving place right on the rocks with the swells and everything, but you would think if there are 5 destroyers, one on the rocks, there's got to be little pieces of them left. But anyway, that's that. I guess that's about it. I'm happy to be out of the forest. I've spent 3 months in that dark forest, but I've gotten a lot of progress there. I did a recording of the voice that I liked an awful lot better than the one I recorded the first time, yeah, we'll see. But it's going to go faster now because we've got much shorter little scenes. So hopefully some more progress we can show you guys on the lounge. So anyway, here we are, and let's just go to Facebook. I'd like to keep it relatively brief tonight because I have to go see Doomcock. And also, I'm kind of tired, to be honest with you. It's been a lot of traveling and things like that. So a lot of road weariness, although Dave Big Booty wins the prize for that because he's a professional truck driver. So I am grabbing now, as we speak, the Facebook link to the Stratosphere Lounge thing. Strangely enough, after this, this just really, really, really angered me, this YouTube thing. I actually have a somewhat milder feeling towards Facebook. And because they're at least running our videos. But let me just maneuver over to BillWhittle.com and see if we can find what we call the VIP edition deluxe questions. Hey, I can become a member. That's interesting. Log in. Log in. Okay. So we got here. Looking, checking, looking. Launch questions and more. Here you go. All right, we'll do these first, and then we'll do the Facebook ones. So 325, 812. That would be today. Let's get a hold of these questions here and see what's jumping. 22 posts. Should be able to knock that down in 2 or 3 hours. Let's see what we got. So, and then we'll get a couple from Facebook. Let's see. This is from Henry Lumley. Bill does a Facebook question night or does not take questions, I will most likely just change the topic names and don't lose any questions. However, when Bill does read questions from the topic, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. Prefer your question. Oh, he's basically setting up everything for the comment section. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate that. That's extremely nice. Let's see. Carl Reinecke says, I've always been a Theodore Roosevelt buff and reach into his bag of quotable quotes for material often. It seems that, quote, establishment Republicans, unquote, hated Teddy and basically drove him off the reservation to progressivism for a lot of the same reasons rhinos hated Donald Trump today. And it also seems that Teddy's progressive conservatism has plenty in common with MAGA. Your thoughts, Bill? I remember I was always a Teddy Roosevelt fan too. It just seemed just this little kid with asthma or tuberculosis as a kid or something, big breathing problems, and then the whole Rough Rider thing, and better to the thing about, it's better to be in the pit in the dust trying and losing than to not compete at all and all that stuff. I went to the Natural History Museum in New York, and I saw a couple quotes from Roosevelt that were really progressive quotes, and I was like a little shaken. Well, when I say a little shaken, I burst into tears basically, and threw my arms around the nearest docent, around the knees, and just please take me to a safe space. So I did not know. I knew he was. I didn't know he was exactly driven out of the party. I knew he was not the nominee, and that he started the Bull Moose Party. And I also know that it was an enormous source of frustration for him and for America in general that during World War One, right after his term or shortly after his term, here's America in the biggest war of all time, if you're not ready to wait a couple of decades. And you've got Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow frickin' Wilson, this bespectacled professor marshmallow, is president of the United States, and Teddy Roosevelt, who's been waiting his whole life for something like that, is cooling his heels. So I would much rather have seen. Look, I think I really do think that Woodrow Wilson was the most damaging president that we've ever had. I almost said the worst, but competition is just going through the roof here. But in terms of the damage done to the U.S., it's a tie between Wilson and Roosevelt, and I'm gonna give it to Wilson because there are some elements of what Roosevelt did that I admired, and all of those would be during the yes, FDR. Sorry, I didn't mean Teddy. I should have specified my Roosevelts. There were a lot of elements of the war that I thought FDR handled rather well as a general rule. So he gets the win for that, and that leaves Wilson. Carter was a terrible president. He was so ineffective, thank God. And then, of course, Obama, I think, is not only the second worst president after Wilson, but he's the second worst president. And as things continue to unwind, he is sprinting on the final. He's, let me mix metaphors. He's coming around the third turn, and he's really opening it up on the home stretch. He's running for it. He might be able to do it. Anyway, FDR is pronounced Roosevelt, and Teddy pronounced Roosevelt. I did not know that. Anyway, so I don't know to what degree it was. People use this term populist. When people say populist, they speak about it like it's Nazi. Oh, he's a populist, and he's also a Nazi. He's a populist, and so on. I guess that comes from this kind of American showmanship kind of thing. Is that where it comes from? Is it like an Elmer Gantry kind of thing, where if you're in favor of things that the people who sent you there want, if you're a champion of not of the working man, just of regular Americans, if you believe in regular Americans and you're a populist, why is that such a dirty word? I suspect it's made a dirty word because the people who don't like the idea of citizens being in government have gone every way they could. Oh, he's a populist. The arrogance of that, that it's the second you hear that word being discussed on television today, or in the modern era anyway, the minute you hear the word populist coming out of the mouth of somebody on TV, it's like opening the fridge and realizing that something in there has gone bad a long time ago. It's like a real oh, whoa. Oh, well, he's a populist. Yeah? Well, what's wrong with that? Isn't that what you're supposed to be? Aren't you supposed to represent the people? Aren't you supposed to be, represent? He's a populist. This is the rhino complaint, and needless to say, the progressives and the Democrats can't. The idea of somebody being in government who's not in government is so abominable to them that they don't do that. Roy Hamill made a comment a little earlier saying, "Don't call Biden Don't call Biden, period. President, question mark. And the reason I just put it that way is I've never used those two words in the same sentence. And if I have, I certainly have made every effort possible to not say those two words in the same sentence. There you go. So I don't know enough about him, Carl, but I do know that both parties hate the idea of citizen governance. And if only one of the parties hated that, we'd be in better shape. Minimum wage increase is a populist idea. I don't know. When I talk about representing the people, I'm talking about representing, you and me, real people, citizens who have some idea how the country works. And certainly, as Quibo, who's going hard for the MVP award today, points out, that's why we have a republic. That's why I'm not opposed to populism. If this was just a miserable democracy, then populism would really have it'd have Julius Caesar connotations. Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, my writing partner on the animation thing we did. I really enjoyed that quite a lot. He's a great guy, that Bill. So if you have a republic, you would think that somebody says, yeah, this is what the people have sent me here to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I would call Donald Trump a populist. Certainly, I would call him that, and that is a compliment as far as I'm concerned. Now, Wizard has a different opinion about that, and I'm certainly willing to unflex when it's something I don't know an awful lot about, but when it's something I do know an awful lot about, it's generally there. Anyway, let's just say unconventional. I really did enjoy the idea that the person who ran for president and became president is taking an enormous pay cut to do it. I think that's a form of insurance. But in any event, there you go. Next question from Henry Lumley. Bill, have you seen the interview between Peter Robinson and Thomas Sowell discussing Sowell's book, Charter Schools and Their Enemies? What more does the right need to do as far as messaging on the topic of charter schools? For those of you who may or may not have seen that thing I did for Larry Elder, with Larry, I find myself in a strange kind of I guess it's a problem. On one hand, I really do believe what I opened by saying about Larry and what I said about Larry on the video Saving California video. I think it's a horrible, terrible thing to say that he's a black conservative. I just think that when I hear conservatives say that, it's just terrible. It's like, this is the whole thing that we're fighting against, right? He's a conservative. And by the way, when I said that it's hard to tell with the iPhone, but when I said it's a slander and to call him a black conservative, he's a conservative. The whole room just really applauded that. So people really get it. So there that is, and that's the part that I believe and so on. But as I also pointed out in that video, we live in California, and we are surrounded by, and we have to. Gavin Newsom may be recalled out of disgust, and if he is, I think Larry Elder will be the next governor. But being governor despite what Gavin Newsom thinks, is not a dictatorial position. You still have to convince people that this is a good idea, which is why I'm such a big Larry Elder fan. I'm a fan of his in a way that I was never a fan of Ben Carson or really any of these guys who coming at it as businessmen. It's not just that he's not a politician. I like that, but the thing that makes me drive around the state for free is because he defends the ideas. He's a salesman for freedom. And that's what we need here, big time. We need a salesman for freedom. And I saw his campaign video, and he's got photographs of the store that his parents opened, little tiny little hole in the wall shop worked his way up, did all of this stuff through hard work. So even though I find the whole business about him being a black conservative to be a repulsive thing to hear from conservatives, nevertheless, the example of Larry Elder puts all of this stuff to rest, as it does with Thomas Sowell. They have power because they are living, and Zoe and all the rest of these, I almost said black conservatives, but conservatives who are black, if that helps. They have power only because of the racial identity and racial politics of the left. I would be just delighted if we never had to use these terms again, and I'm working hard to get to a country where we live like that. But Tom Bombadil, hey Tom, talked about, he said, coming off Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'd settle for an avid neutral on freedom for governor of California. Yeah, anything's better than what we've got. But it was Schwarzenegger that I had in mind. You know, we thought he was this super conservative. You know, the same kind of story as Larry Elder. Poor kid comes from nowhere, makes himself into this gigantic public figure and so on, and then he gets to be governor, and the second he's governor, they start putting some pressure on him, and he buckles. And Marusha Dark just beat me to the punch, because apparently he said a couple days ago, talking about the masks and so on, he basically said, F your freedoms. This is coming from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm not surprised it's coming from Arnold Schwarzenegger, but if you told me this 15, 20 years ago, then I would have been surprised. And Dave Big Booty, as always, comes in for the extra point. He says he married a Kennedy. That's all you will rot your brain, but that's really it, right? I mean, you just can't be those two things. So we live in a world let me rephrase that. I live in a state of identity politics, and I genuinely believe the fact that this guy is a resident of South Central LA, who came out of South Central LA anyway, and did it on his own, that will be enough of a fig leaf for certain California Democrats to vote for a Republican. That's how they'll justify it to themselves. And if they do it just once, for God's sake, just once, they will not regret that decision. All of a sudden, things will start to work. And all of a sudden, we'll start realizing the reason roads are so bad in LA is because people stole the money for the roads in LA. You can tell when you enter LA County. Entering LA County from any direction, if you're coming down from the north, coming in from the east, coming up from the south from Orange County, if you're coming in from San Bernardino County, if you're coming out from Ventura County or coming down from Kern County, and it doesn't matter which direction. When you are driving and you enter LA County, it's like encountering turbulence on an airplane. It's like having a perfectly smooth ride and everything's great, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. It's exactly what it's like. And what else do you need to know? So I'm rooting for him real hard. I think he's got an excellent chance. When California said they're going to be mailing out ballots because of the Delta variant, that took a lot of the advantage away, which is why they did it. Because the people nobody really is like, completely for Gavin Newsom. There's a lot of people who don't want to see him lose to a Republican, but their motivation level is a lot lower than the people who will go out and vote for a Republican crawling across glass. And when it was a question of voter turnout, I thought we had this thing pretty much sewn up. But now that it's just a question of mailing in your ballot, or ballots as your taste may run, however many you particularly care to mail in, that's going to make it more difficult. We'll see. But we have an election year next year, and I'll tell you something. The more I see, especially with the thing with Cuomo and that segment we did on the state attorney general, we need to readjust our sights. Having watched the 2020 election, I've come to realize that the governor of the state is not nearly as important as the Secretary of State and the Attorney General of the state. It's the Justice Department. And those are the positions that we should be going hard for. Anything that's got to do with the enforcement of laws. on the highest level. So I haven't seen Sol's interview. I don't really need to see it. The screenshot that he put up, you just look at the guy and you just say, can he be president, please? He's the smartest guy in the country. There's no question about it. When you look at the people that the left elevate, they elevate, what's her name? I'm losing it, man. You know, the lady from MSNBC. Her face is right in front of me. Sometimes I just lose brain cells, and they're flown away. They're gone, and they're probably not coming back. Come on, come on. She's about to leave MSNBC. No, not Joy Reid. No, 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 not Rachel Maddow. Thank you. Jeez, what's the matter with me? Yeah, they elevate people like Rachel Maddow and Janine Garofalo was a big thinker for the left back 10 years ago, and all the rest of it. And you look at the people on our side. You got Thomas Sowell, and you've got Victor Davis Hanson, and all of this stuff. It's like, good God in heaven, really. The thing that's the most depressing thing about this whole thing is the quality of the people that are doing the damage. If we're gonna lose the country, I'd much rather lose it to Soviet paratroopers with machine guns. Okay, so moving on, John Connor. Hey, Bill, any chance of seeing you take on Steven Crowder's Skylar Turden? I don't know what that is, but I'm going to assume that it's a parody of Tyler Durden from Fight Club. I heard, as I don't listen to other guys, I don't have the time, and I also think it's wise for me not to. But I did hear he was going in for surgery, heart surgery, and I suppose that's happened by now, and I hope he's okay. Wolverines. He's, I worked with Steve at PJTV, and I was going to say 10 years ago, but it's more like 12. Right after he got hired at PJTV, we went down to Guantanamo Bay together. Steve Crowder and I sat in a boat out in the middle of Guantanamo Bay pulling fish out of Castro's ocean, and watching the luminescence, the bioluminescence. It was a fun time. But he's made a real thing for himself. When this animation thing gets done, you will finally see me operating at my full capacity. That's when this battle station will be fully armed and operational. Because to me, it's the entertainment stuff that I get. That's what I live. That's my first best future. Titanium rods to fix his sternum from going into his heart. Yeah, I think caught a glimpse of the X-ray. That's not good. I just finished moving back to America today, by the way, which I'm going to edit as soon as I'm done with this. As soon as I'm finished talking to Doomcock. Have I been holding back all this time, Bill? Yes, I have actually. I have been holding back all this time because I am much more effective doing entertainment stuff than I am doing political commentary. I've been holding back from the beginning to some degree. I'm not holding back on the content. You get the best content I have, but in terms of like going all in on the career, I just know what I'm good at, and I'm fairly good at this, but it's nothing compared to what I could do when I'm working at full power. And anyway, Steve is going at it and chewing it up, and so is Ben, and so is Michael Knowles, and all these guys. They're really fully engaged, and the stuff that I intend to be fully engaged on, I mean to change society. I really do. I mean to Gene Roddenberry myself into this fight. You probably heard of him. Speaking of which, by a strange and bizarre coincidence, which I'm sure is not a coincidence, The next question in the members only thing is an artwork of William Shatner, 4 different poses in his tuxedo singing Rocket Man. Uh, hey Bill, the internet needs a meta-human version of William Shatner singing Rocket Man. Please make that video. That's from Henry again. Yes. Um, you know, the metahuman creator is similar to the character creator in Star Citizen, where you basically have morph targets. You don't get just there's some degree, but generally speaking, you don't get to say I want a wider face, I want a bigger nose. You kind of have to morph different faces together, which is horrible, hard. I saw a video. I haven't watched the video. I just saw it. I put it in the queue to watch later on tonight, where a guy took apparently like a gorilla head and metahumaned it. So uh, apparently it can be played around with, and yes, so that would be a great thing to do. And if it turns out that I can get a metahuman to look not just a kind like Shatner, in this particular set to look exactly like him, but if I can do that, then I will crawl across broken glass and knock on the door of my friend Maurice LaMarche, who I haven't seen in years, and beg him to do his extremely excellent William Shatner impression. It's very, very good. It's uh, I don't know what it is about the memory today. It's just gone. Um, Kevin Pollock. It's Kevin Pollock. Good. That's how good it is, and that would be really fun. But this is in fact, this artwork is so epic. I'm just gonna just drag it onto the show. Why not? This software is so much better than what we were doing with, I can't even remember, Ustream. That was the worst software ever. Hey, here, take a look at this. Tell me this doesn't fill you with the kind of pride in America and our future that just for a second here. Let's just go to the full Ford. Really kind of, there you go. We live in the age of high def now. I'm looking at this picture and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what to do with Bill Shatner in this. I really don't. Uh, First of all, Bill Shatner himself, by every single account, including my own personal experience with him two occasions, is one of the worst people on the planet. He really is. He's just not a nice guy. But his character is not only legendary. His character is the he if back in ancient Greek times there were people who worshipped at the temple of Apollo, and so on. And I'm a Captain Kirk guy. Without Captain Kirk, I'm not who I am. He is Canadian, yes. Um, and I'm looking at this picture and I realize, okay, it's campy and a parody and makes him look kind of cheesy and bad. And then I look at it some more and I realize, but he's a god. Look at him. He looks like a living god, and he's wearing a tuxedo against outer space, and then I come back to, yes, but he's completely butchering this thing, and he's unaware of how bad he is. And then at the same time, then I come back again and say, yes, he's unaware of how bad he is. And the reason he's unaware of how bad he is because he's William effing Shatner. That's why he doesn't care. It doesn't matter. I have to drop this name just because I'm so happy of it. There's nothing quite like making somebody who you've admired your whole life laugh hard. That's a really special thrill. I had dinner with Dave Zucker, and he asked me to do something with him a couple years ago, and I said, Dave, I'd love to. Why'd you have me in? I said, because you're really funny. And I just sitting at this table, David Zucker, who did Airplane and Naked Gun and all, just said, I'm a really funny guy. I was at lunch with Johnny Voight, and John Voight had been on Shatner's Raw Nerve interview show, and I had edited that show. I edited the John Voight show of William Shatner, and he called me and said, I'm really worried, they're going to make me look like an idiot. I said, hey, buddy, you don't look like an idiot. You come off sounding great. And I did a great cut, a fair cut, not one that makes Shatner look like an idiot, and not one that destroys Johnny Voight. And then that was the last show I did, and then I heard they recut it because I let John talk about conservative things. But anyway, many years after that, I was sitting there, sitting in a restaurant, and John was there, and so he'd obviously met Bill Shatner and been on the show. And I said, John, the great thing about Bill Shatner is you pay $7 for a ticket, but you get $12 worth of acting. And John started laughing so hard I thought he was going to cry. And that was a big moment for me. That made me very happy. So there he is, there he is. He's unmockable, Bill Shatner. But here's the thing that's interesting about it. He's unmockable in a completely different way than Leslie Nielsen, who I absolutely adore. And by the way, it just occurred to me, Leslie Nielsen, of course, is the starship captain that Captain Kirk was based on. Give me a moment for those of you who don't believe me. There is so much of Star Trek in this movie, whose name I am withholding, not because I've forgotten it, but because I'm withholding it for dramatic effect. Let me find a good still here. Come on. Add to the search here. Nothing like watching somebody else typing when it comes to top quality television. Here we go. This will work. So here's comic actor Leslie Nielsen. Come on. Now, why did the Shatner thing go in there and this not? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I realized it was just a very small little image. Yeah, there he is. There's Leslie Nielsen from the amazing Forbidden Planet movie. Astonishingly good. Of all the movies, they're remaking Lord of the Rings. If there was ever a movie that did not ever need to be remade in all of time, it's Lord of the Rings, but they're remaking that. But the one movie that does need to be remade is Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet, if they remade Forbidden Planet today, and I'm glad they're not, because then it would become a woke extravaganza. We'd have a black female captain and all the rest of it. But if they were to remake Forbidden Planet in the spirit of the original and use modern special effects, that would be one of the great blockbusters of all time. Let me get rid of this, and I'll just show you one more groovy. Look at this guy, and there's your. What else do you need? I mean, he out Shatner. And the reason I thought of Leslie Nielsen is because he is also somebody who is unmockable, but for precisely the opposite reason. You can't really mock William Shatner because Shatner doesn't understand just how tone deaf he is, and therefore he's beyond reproach. Bill Shatner doesn't understand when somebody like Kevin Pollak does an impression of William Shatner. Shatner, even today, says, I don't see what you're talking about. I don't see what you're talking about. He just can't get it. Nielsen, on the other hand, Nielsen is unmockable because Leslie Nielsen is so acutely, perfectly aware of how ridiculous he can look that he is absolutely one of my favorite actors of all time, Leslie Nielsen. And when I look at the the whole airplane thing and the whole Naked Gun thing and all the rest of it, I just realize what an amazing talent he is, and not just an amazing talent, but also how much confidence he has as an individual, as an actor. Most actors have zero confidence, self-confidence, but Nielsen had enough self-confidence to make fun of himself at a time when he still could have gotten away with being a leading man. I just got the feeling that he just really enjoyed it, that he really enjoyed being this dense clown, this Frank Drebin thing. I just love him. And I also remember there was a strange, kind of weird sort of poetic beauty about the fact that I don't know how long ago it was now. It's been 5-6 years at least. I would say 4 or 5 years. That Leslie Nielsen and Anne Francis, who were so good in this, died about, I want to say 4 or 5 days apart from each other, something like that. That was a month. It was poetic. If you haven't seen Forbidden Planet, you will see, well, you'll see 1957, was it? 57, 58 special effects. I should mention, by the way, that in 1957 or 58, the special effects in Forbidden Planet, I'm virtually positive they won an Oscar. A lot of those effects still hold up pretty well if you go into it with the right spirit, if you go into it like you're watching a Disney movie. But if you were to take Forbidden Planet, this is what I would want. I would want the script verbatim. I would want the same script that they used to shoot the original. I wouldn't change a line, not a line. And I'd cast it the same kind of way too. But if you did that, Channing Tatum would be kind of a cool Leslie Nielsen character. If you added modern special effects to the story that is very special effects intensive, you would have an unbelievable movie. All right, so moving on, let's see. Martin Archer's asking me about the Eager Beavers again. I teed up that video and I didn't get a chance to watch it. There's another video I need to watch too. I've got 2 hours worth of videos that I need to watch. They're like, they're in the queue and I need to get to them. So afraid I can't answer that one yet, but I'll try and get. Oh, that's from 2000. That's from January 1st. How old are all these questions? Good Lord. Wow, that's kind of spooky. This comment thread is older than I thought it was. So here's something from Henry, and some of them very nice words about Americans' Forgotten Heroes. And a number, well, when I say a number, three people, or 4. So we do the Moving Back to America segments, do them on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, all other things being equal, if I haven't been there. And a couple people have asked, could I put the raw version of the Moving Back to America shows, make it up for members only? And I certainly can do that. I don't know why people want to watch it, but, I mean, the one I shot this morning is the longest edited one I've done in a long time. I think edited it is, let's find out. I'm just wrapping it up. The cut version it's one of the longest ones I've done since I've been editing them. Yikey. Yeah, it's 25 minutes. That's real long. But in this particular case, I thought it was worth it. So, yeah, some people like watching the process, and behind-the-scenes stuff is always fun. We have had a little bit of a problem that Scott pointed out, and that is that we used to just do, on YouTube, we can set a video to be unlisted so that we send out the link to members, and they're the only people that see it. We can't really do that, I don't think, on Rumble. But what we can do is host it on Rumble and then just send the link out to members. And, it's not like people are stealing money when they get access to this stuff. So if people really want to see the live version, I guess that's something we can do. It's certainly pretty simple, really. So maybe we'll try it. We'll give it a spin and see how it goes. And then if it turns out that people like it, then we can just do it. I covered a lot of this last time, but I will just deal with it here quickly. From Ian Nolan. Bill, I have a younger brother who just graduated high school who's trying to get into filmmaking, creating commercials for local businesses and the like. Given the strong emphasis you place on storytelling, what should he do or where should he go to learn how to craft strong narratives? If I were him, I would be making commercials for local businesses and the like. Um, and I'm not trying to be flippy. And the worst place to be right now in the entire country, if you want to get into show business, is Hollywood. Um, it's the worst place to be. I'm not being hyperbolic here, or even parabolic. Uh, I can't think of a worse place to be if you want to start being a filmmaker. And the reason I can't think of a worse place to be is because in virtually every place else in the country, and I can't think of any other exceptions, possible exception New York City. Just about anybody anywhere can go outside with a camera and shoot something out on the street. You try that in Los Angeles, and there will be people here demanding you pay their $2,000 permit. Um, so, the way to, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I spent the last show as an entertainment show, but just for 10 minutes or so. There is a way to learn how to do things on your own, and it applies to filmmaking, and I'm sure it applies to plumbing or any other trade. And it's a strange combination. You on one hand, you can't just learn from videos and books. You can't just take it all in theoretically. You've got to go out and make your own mistakes, because if you don't make your own mistakes, they won't sting enough for them to stick. And at the same time, you can't just go out there and dick around and not learn from those mistakes. So it is kind of the thing where if I was advising people on how they can get to be movie makers, I would tell them to go out and make their own movies, but I would also tell them before you go, do some of the basics, and then after you're finished, when it doesn't come out the way you want it to, understand why it didn't work. The best possible advice for being a film director is to be a film editor, because if you're a film editor, you will very quickly realize what happens when you don't have enough coverage, what happens when you don't have a shot that you absolutely need because it's referenced in some critical scene. The Once you've worked as an editor, you will never, as a director, go out there again and not come back with the coverage you need to build the sequence out. But before that, you sure as heck will. I'm still a little amazed at watching people. I have on DVD. I have to get a DVD player. It's not a big deal. I'm sure they can. Some museum somewhere has them. But I have on DVD, and I will try and make this a promise. I have on DVD about an hour and 15 minutes of the comedy show that I did, the episodes that we did back in Gainesville in 1993, called Grazing. And I'm going to just convert that and play it. We did probably 100 individual sketches on that show. And some of them were very clever, if I do say so myself. I wrote some of them. Most of the really good ones were written by other people. But I directed all of them. And the reason that came to mind was and some of them were just plain bizarre. And we liked that. And that's really cool. It's really cool to make things that are just weird for the sake of being weird. We like to play around with a little bit play around with the medium. We called it Grazing because the whole premise was we did it at the public TV access station in Gainesville, Florida. We did it at Gainesville Cox Cable Public TV Access. We could use the studio, and we had a guy who was there, Jeff, who was an employee there, and he was our technical guy. And we just did a lot of stuff in the studio, did a lot of stuff out in the street as well. But we weren't getting paid for it, and we didn't have any investors to make up for it. It was a labor of love, and I found a really talented group of improv guys at the University of Florida in 93. I left there in 82, and I went back there in 93, so these guys are 10 years younger than me. But there was a improv group there called Carnival Knowledge, and a number of those people have gone on, they're working in Hollywood right now. But they were very funny, and and a couple of other people I met that were really funny and got to be very good friends of mine. And we just went out and had fun. And so we would do things that were just strange sometimes, just because we liked to play around with it. The classic example of this was we did an elevator sketch. We did an elevator sketch with a friend of mine named Rocket. His name was Ron Smith, and he ended up calling, didn't call himself Rocket back at the time. He called himself Noah Smith, which is his actual name. But Ron died of cancer. I guess it's a year and a half ago now. He was the first of us to go, and he was by far the funniest and the strangest. Rocket was the strangest person I've ever met in my life, and I just adored him. And when we had his, it wasn't really his funeral because he was in Florida, but most of the people who had known him and worked with him back in the day are out here and have been out here for a long time. So we had a party for him after he died, and we all got up. And I hadn't seen these people; some of them hadn't seen in 10 years, and we all talked about him and reminisced about him and stuff. And I remember saying that one day I went to pick him up outside his house in the student ghetto, and he came out. To say that he had bizarre taste in clothing is to understate the case. He came out, and we weren't even going to be shooting. I was just picking him up to go watch a football game. He came out with some kind of a elaborate shirt with like pearl buttons, and he had a leather cowboy hat on. He always had these very strange glasses. He had a very thin face, very, very, very deep set eyes, and he just dressed the way he wanted to. And I was talking about him at this memorial service, and I said, I picked him up one day, and he got in the car, and I said, Ron, you look like a Brazilian prostitute. And he gave me this look like he didn't really know what I was talking about. When I said that, everybody laughed, and I said, when I first met him, I thought he's so thick that he doesn't realize how silly he looks. And then I realized that it was a form of perfect innocence, kind of like being there, perfect innocence. It wasn't that he didn't realize that he dressed in such a flamboyant fashion, and it wasn't that he didn't care, because he did. It's just that he was so perfectly innocent that it just never occurred to him. Anyway, he was the funniest guy I've ever heard. He and another guy named Brian Bradley were all good friends. One night when I first met these guys, I went back to Gainesville in '93, and I just thought I'd go for a couple weeks and try and do a TV show, and if I couldn't, I'd come back. And I met these guys. I didn't hurt his feelings. I didn't hurt his feelings at all. This is my entire point. Fleet Karen's 87 said you must have hurt his feelings. No, it didn't hurt his feelings at all. And by the way, this is all how we always talk to each other. You know, this is how comic writers talk to each other, is just through insults. And I would pitch an idea that I was particularly proud of, and I'd do the whole thing and kind of act it out. And so what do you guys think? And Rocket had the ability to do a perfect sound of crickets. Perfect. And I'd say, what do you think? And all of a sudden, it'd be this dead silence, and you just dead silence, like the kind of this is the when you bomb so badly on stage that you can hear the crickets outdoors. It's perfect silence. He used to use that on me all the time. Ron Smith got off the best insult to me I have ever had in my life. I still cherish it enormously. I hadn't seen him in a while, and we pulled up a couple seats on a bar, and he turned to me and he said, "Hey, Bill, you've been working out?" I said, "No." And he said, "No, I didn't think so." And I just thought that was the most wonderful, brilliant thing. Anyway, we did a sketch, and I'll show it to you. And the sketch was this: Brian Bradley, who's a comic genius, is in Hippodrome Theater in Gainesville is a building was built, I want to say 1910 or 20, a classic old, used to be like a post office or something. Incredible building, the Hippodrome Theater in Gainesville, one of the best buildings ever. It's a perfect theater too, perfect theater building. So it had an old style elevator. It had an elevator with a sliding grate, so that you didn't get yourself cut in half, and then you got in it. And it didn't have a hand operation, but it was real slow and open, and so the old school. And I don't remember whose idea it was. I want to say it must have been Ron's because it was so bizarre. So I set the scene up, and I used this really intense blue light coming down through the grating. So you get the shadow on their faces. And I really Dutch angled it too. I gave it a real weird tilt. You watch, if you're not aware of it, just go and watch the Batman TV show. And every time that a villain is on the screen, there's a real serious Dutch angle. It's anytime the bad guys are on the screen, the frame is tilted to give you the sense that there's something really wrong. So we did that too. So the sketch works like this. So Brian Bradley is he's kind of like this timid sort of businessman kind of guy, and he's in a suit and a tie, and he's sweating, and he's real nervous, and then the elevator stops and the door opens, and Ron comes in, and he's dressed in black leathers, and he's got orange or purple dyed hair, and real severe looking guy, and so the door closes. And Brian's like looking at him, and Ron's just giving him this ice cold stare, like this biker stare, And there's this long moment, because this thing was all about the timing, and 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 after this enormously long, tense thing where it's just getting more and more nervous, and this Brian is sure that this guy's going to knife him. Ron says, 5, please. In other words, I'm going to the 5th floor. The second he says 5, please, Brian pulls out this pistol and starts shooting. It's a revolver. And he shoots him with the revolver for, I think it was 48 seconds. And we give the impression that the elevator's moving by moving the lights. Somebody's moving the lights in the opposite direction, so you see these shadows. And it's like the elevator's going up, and Brian's got the pistol. He's like, bang, 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 bang. And Ron's doing the bullet hits, bang, 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 bang. And we got a strobe light in there. We're firing a strobe off, and it's just, so it's flash, 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 bang, 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 bang. And we were playing with this idea of, and we did this a couple times. We were playing with the idea with, at what point does the repetition of something stupid become funny? Because it does. You see this and you think, what's going on? And then you realize, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. They're just playing this thing for laughs. They're just going to keep shooting him. They're playing him for laughs. And you sit there and you're watching it, and when here's where it gets funny. It gets funny when people realize that everybody's in on the joke now, and they keep going. It's not, we've figured it out now, obviously, but it just keeps going, and it never ends. It just keeps going and going and going. And after you realize that's the joke, then it actually becomes extremely funny. Lord Sank said Family Guy stole the idea with the knee joke. I'm not saying they stole the idea, but the knee joke is funny. If you haven't seen Family Guy, there's a running joke in the show where he falls down, hurts his knee, and he holds his knee and goes, ah, ah, ah. He does it for 5 minutes. And it's hilarious. And I had music from, I found this weird gospel station of all things. And so there's this bizarre gospel song that you would hear in Central Florida in the late 50s, Water from the rock is what we need, and water from the night. When you feel the rock of our salvation. That was the general tune. And the whole thing combines together to make something just absolutely weird and bizarre. And it is not for everybody. In fact, it wasn't for most people. But we really liked it. Now, one that I did do that this was the best directing I've ever done in real life. We loved this idea, and once again, Ron and my friend Pete Hirkin, we had this idea. They used to. They're all so physical. They're just so naturally funny that whenever we would get together for a writing session, just for fun, because these guys are just this is how we're built. Them more than me. It just because they're bored, they would start doing. Why did I hang on, Bill? Why did you skip my question on drag queen story hours being the Western version of grooming gangs? I skipped it because I didn't see it. I will go back and look again. In any event, they would just start throwing punches at each other. They just for fun. Boom, and Ron would take a big sip of water, and the second Pete would hit him, he'd spit it out. We just thought it was hilarious. So we went to the public TV station in Gainesville, Florida, and we got there about 10 or 11 at night. We had the place all to ourselves because Jeff had the keys. And we did this interrogation scene called Sonny and Mick, where they're both Irish, and we find out that they're both brothers. And one of them, Ron, is tied to this chair, and we got this naked light bulb right out of film noir kind of thing. And he starts punching him. And he keeps punching him, and he punches him again and again and again. And we called it grazing because we're simulating changing channels. So then we cut away. We do 7 or 8 other sketches, and we come back to this channel again, and he's still punching him. He's more tired and sweating more. And then go back again, do another 5, 6 sketches, come back again, and he's still punching him. But I directed that, and it had a real noir look, and the physical comedy was so good that was the best sketch we ever did. And I had so much fun doing that. I've never had that kind of fun since, at least professionally. And I miss that. I just miss that so much. Collaboration in this art form is well, it's hit and miss. When you're working with bad people, it's not so good. When you're working with good people, it's great. I never had fun like I had working on that show. But when I did the Apollo 11 series over at Daily Wire, I remember thinking, oh, so this is what it's like to work with other people, other professionals who do better work than I do in their specific fields, A lot of people, oh, Bill, why don't you do this or that? Or you're control. No, I just love working with people who are better than me. And I would come in, and I saw the set for the first time on the Apollo 11 thing. I couldn't believe my eyes. It affected my performance enormously. It felt like I was in mission control. And the editing and the music, and they would find clips that I'd never seen before. That's really fun, and it's great to be able to work in entertainment instead of talking headdom, because you just have so much more in terms of the way of tools. Okay, so let's see if we can find this question that I skipped. Is it the story of the drag queen story hours? Let's see if that's it. I imagine that's it. What was the original drag queen story hours? Here it is. So Henry Lumley, hello Henry. There you are. Social question: Will the ever-growing practice of drag queen story hours? Will society ever recognize this for the predatorial grooming that this practice is setting up in our society? These events bear all the signs of grooming. I, for one, cannot imagine what these kids are going to do their parents what these kids are going to do to their parents when they get old enough to know what was done to them. You don't have to read the rest, but here are some of the signs of grooming I got from online resource. Let me show you the pictures so that we can all see just how really shockingly kind of vile this whole thing is. Here's the picture in question. Yeah. So these are drag queens explaining to this little girl why they're drag queens. And it's in no way confusing to that little girl. Or I mean, really, this picture just speaks for itself, right? But Henry goes on to say, here are some of the things that you see. You get victim selection. Abusers often observe possible victims and select them based on ease of access to them or their perceived vulnerability. By the way, grooming, as I understand the term, is what sexual predators do in order to make their victims more comfortable. They basically slowly acclimate them to inappropriate behavior. They just do it very, very slowly. A lot of these pictures of Biden, with his arms around these girls, and it's all preparing them for advanced lechery. So there's you select the victims because you can see who's putting up the biggest fight and who's not. Gaining access and isolating the victim, abusers will attempt to physically or emotionally separate a victim from those protecting them, and often seek out positions in which they have contact with minors. Yes. So another thing you do is you find a way to put yourself in the company of children and do your very best to make sure that you get to spend time with children alone, because that's how you can tell them that, you've got puppies out in the van and do you want to come see them. Trust development and keeping secrets. Abusers attempt to gain the trust of a potential victim through gifts, attention, sharing secrets, and other means to make them feel that they have a caring relationship and to train them to keep the relationship secret. Absolutely. If you're going to commit this kind of crime, this kind of horrific crime, you can't just dive into it, I imagine. Now, a lot of people said that that scene I did where I'm hawking illegal video cards was a little close to the truth, and maybe it had some experience with that. That was just good acting. Was just okay acting. This is stuff that I don't know anything about other than to hear from sources, and a lot of this just makes sense, And then desensitization to touch and discussion of sexual topics. Abusers will often start to touch a victim in ways that appear harmless, such as hugging. Did you hear that, Joe? Wrestling, tickling, and later escalate to increasingly more sexual contact, such as massages or showering together. Abusers may also show the victim pornography or discuss sexual topics with them to introduce them to the idea of sexual contact. I'm going through this because it's important. Yes, and watching Joe is like watching. It's like a class. He's getting them used to the idea of touching them, and he's also finding out who's putting up the big fight and who's not. And then finally, attempts by abusers to make their behavior seem natural, to avoid raising suspicions. For teens who may be closer in age to the abuser, it can be particularly hard to recognize tactics used in grooming. Be alert for signs that your teen has a relationship with an adult that includes secrecy, undue influence or control, or pushes personal boundaries. Only contact that I have ever had with this, personally, was... Oh, and which reminds me of another thing I wanted to talk about today. When I was playing Little League Baseball and I was 10 or 11 years old on Key Biscayne, there was a guy who came and took photographs. He was the guy who took that picture of me at bat, I'll see if I can find it. It's one of my all-time favorite pictures. The regulars here have seen it a lot. Let me just see if it's handy, because I'd forgotten the story behind this, probably because it's kind of it's not a lot of detailing things, just maybe this is why I just kind of block it out. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can find it. Anyway, I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking for this. If I can't find it fast, I'm going to just move on. But anyway, there's a picture of me playing Little League Baseball when I'm 10. And that picture was taken by a guy who was, everybody realized, was kind of a creepy guy. And the only thing I remember about this guy was that he made some kind of reference to some player. It wasn't one of our players because we didn't have numbers, but somehow, somewhere, he made a reference to a player jersey, and it was 69 was the name of the number, and he said 69, huh? What do you know? I was just mystified. I had no idea what he's talking about, none. And I don't remember how much of it he explained or tried to explain, but he was eventually run out of town on a rail. Never saw him again. But that's about it. You know, it's just a creepy guy. And as I recall, once when I was 14 or something, I was walking along the street and some guy kept, circling around the block again and again and again, just kind of driving past. And it's like, okay, I'm not old enough to really know what's going on, but I'm old enough to know that this isn't quite right. There's something wrong here. Anyway, look, I think the simplest explanation for all of this it's not even recruitment, it's exposure to children of things that they cannot possibly understand. They'll have a hard time understanding it when they're teenagers, but this insistence on it is, yes, all of the things you say is true, are true, Henry, but it's as I pointed out in the Scott Ott episode of Right Angle this week, it really is a supply chain issue for them. That's really it. If you're going to have a society of victims, and if transsexuals are the current reigning all-time victims who have the all-time moral authority, then you got to keep them coming, right? I mean, you got to keep them coming. What do you say about this? DJax 65 says, after Joe croaks, you'll have dozens of people coming out of the woodwork and so on. And they protected Cuomo and they protected Clinton and all the rest of it. This is why you need a free press, and this is why a one-party state is dangerous. It's not that Republicans are immune to this kind of thing. It's just that Republicans know they'll get caught, and they do get caught. Democrats, Andrew Cuomo did what he did as flagrantly as he did for as long as he did it because he knew no one was going to run with the story. He's a Democrat. He's a prominent Democrat. They love him. They love him almost as much as they love Fauci. And I have a few problems with Fauci, personally. So, yeah, this is what happens when you assume that you're automatically right and everybody else is automatically wrong, and you don't have any discussions about it because you're so sure you're right. This is what happens when you shut down the discussions. When one group of people are sure that they can do anything that they want to do at any time and get away with it, then they'll start doing anything that they want to do at any time because they think get away with it. So there you go. I'm going to do a couple from Facebook here. And let's see what we got here. And I'm not going to do too many of them because I really kind of need to get going. I got to go talk to DVD. I'm reading the wrong comment section. That's why that didn't make as much sense as I would have liked. There's one from Eduardo about a Korean series called Kingdom on Netflix. I haven't seen it, but I will look. It sounds cool. I'm just looking for something I can do that I haven't talked about already. Oh, there's a video link here called It's a Woke World After All. I haven't seen it, Jason, but I will look at it right afterwards. All right, I don't know what this one is, but I like the sound of it, so I'm going to do it. Ian A. Little says, imagine you are dropped off at a primitive Earth-like planet with 100 of your closest friends. The condition for your rescue is you have to create a rocket capable of bringing you to orbit. You have no tools, but you have access to the designs for every machine or tool ever made. How long would it take for you to build the rocket and get off the planet? Ian, I think I could probably do that in, I don't know, 4 hours maybe. Only because it's already been done for me. I don't know if you can see it on the wall back there. No, it's not visible. So in order to do that, in order to achieve orbit, what I would do basically is I'd send the 100 people out into the forest, and I would find the largest piece of bamboo that I could possibly find. Then I would go searching the surface of the planet for charcoal, saltpeter, sulfur, and I would mix them with the approximate proportions that I was looking for. And I would get other guys to go out into the jungle and they'd take vines and wind the vines, and then I'd wind the vines around the big wide piece of bamboo to hold it and maintain it. Then I would essentially just manufacture a space capsule out of thatch and coconuts. It's not as hard as it sounds. The professor on Gilligan's Island could make a radio out of a coconut tree, so how hard could that be? And then you just basically put a match to it. Next thing you know, you're in orbit. For those of you who are not aware of what I'm talking about, let me see if I can find a visual aid. There it is. Nice way to circle back to what we were talking about earlier. This picture is on my wall. It's out of frame, but it's on my wall and it's fully enlarged. I'll show it to you here. The reason this picture is on my wall, hang on. Oh, I did the same thing, didn't I? Yeah. The reason this picture is on my wall is because this is the ultimate expression of Western man. This is why William Shatner is a god to me. William Shatner, let me rephrase that. Here's Captain Kirk. He's fighting this giant lizard that's much stronger than him and much tougher than him. And the lizard just takes a few moments to sharpen like a flint knife. And Kirk knows that a flint knife is not going to work against this guy. So Kirk builds himself a cannon. And I'm not kidding. This exact frame is on my wall. This exact frame. Dave Big Booty points out the greatest expression of Western man is Indiana Jones shooting the swordsman. You could win that argument conceivably. But this is it. It's like, okay, I'm going to invest the time and the energy and the money, and I'm going to do something much more difficult than something simple like make a knife. I'm going to have to use my brains. I'm going to have to run away from this guy. I know enough about science to know that I need saltpeter, I need sulfur, I need charcoal, and I'm going to need something to keep this piece of bamboo from exploding. But basically, I almost said he makes a gun, but he doesn't make a gun. He makes a cannon, puts some diamonds or something in there. There's nothing but minerals on this planet where it's called Arena is the name of the episode, where some super advanced alien is trying to see which one of these two is most real and or most deserving of survival. And the Gorn captain makes a knife and Kirk makes a cannon. A cannon. And it's such a damn good idea that it's actually a little bit of a shame that you have to put up with frames like this. And at the same time, I look at a frame like this and I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's awesome. So there's that Shatner thing again. He's unmockable because as far as I'm concerned, he's fighting the Gorn captain and he's not fighting a guy in a bad rubber suit. And that's what keeps him going. But this moment, and of all the things in this picture that I like, the thing I like the most is the expression. It's great. It reminds me of that Neil Armstrong expression that I talked about on the Apollo 11 series. This picture of Shatner, this picture of Captain Kirk is like, okay, he's worried. he knows he has a limited amount of time. He knows that this guy is coming at him with this knife. He's injured, so he can't walk very fast, and plus the rubber. He knows he has to finish drilling the touch hole in this thing, and he knows that if he rushes too much, he's going to make a mistake. So he's taking his time, but at the same time, he's moving as fast as he can, and he's just plain using his brain. He's just plain using his brain, um, and he sure enough fires off this cannon, and the thing explodes, nearly kills the Gorn captain, and then we all realize that no, the whole idea of fighting is wrong, and we get our lesson, which is actually a pretty decent lesson. Um, and he's got the universal translator on his back. Pretty amazing. So, yeah, that's Western man right there. This is Rourke's drift, as far as I'm concerned. It's Rourke's drift. They got the numbers, we got the bang sticks. So there you go. Gang, I'm going to call it a night. I have to finish editing the Moving Back to America that I shot today, which is called Men Without Chests. Some guy in a university in Oxford, no, at Queen Anne College or some in the UK, is making the case that if you could avert an asteroid that would be coming towards the Earth to kill everything on Earth, and you had the power to avert it, maybe you shouldn't, to save all of the suffering that would happen if people continue to live. And I just found that so repulsive that I spent 22 minutes on it or something like that. And put the Discord link on our videos for people to find. Okay, let me click on that link here. I'll hand that over to our guy on the job, and we'll see if we can do that. But right now I'm going to go over to see DVD, and I'll put a comment in there and see if he is able to talk. And I also I've had this on my desk for a while now, since 30th of July, but it's from Fizzmeister, and I haven't acted on that yet either. It's got to do with Nerdrotic, I think. Was it Neurotic? No, it's Doomcock. So that's probably who you are. Okay, so we'll give him a ring and see what he says, and he's really great. And remember, my friends, stay angry. That should be my slogan. But he already got it. Anyway, yeah. All right. So there you go. So that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Thanks for joining us. I'm very sorry about the first one. I just was so excited to be going to Vegas that I just plain forgot. But the only way I can make Stratosphere Lounge on time every week is to not do it live. That's the honest answer. I can get the show out at 6 o'clock every Wednesday, the same way I get the right angles out by we shoot them all on Tuesday morning at 10:30. I've done that for 7 years here and another 5 years before that. So if it's got to be live, then there are things that happen during my shoot schedule where there are just times that I can't make it, and that's the Stratosphere Lounge dilemma, I'm sorry to say. In any event, it's always great to be here. It's always great to talk to you guys. I love doing the show, and I do it whenever I possibly can. And if I forget to mention it for whatever reason, you have my sincere apologies. Not just my required apologies. I really mean it. I know it's very frustrating, and I know it comes off as heartless and rude and stuff. It's not. It's not rude. It's not heartless. It's not insensitive. It's just plain stupid. That's all there is. It's just plain dope. I know that Daily Wire and people like that don't do that, but then again, they have guys whose job it is to do things like that, and that makes life a little easier. Anyway, I'm off to talk to the future ruler of Earth and see if he'll take my questions. And that'll do it. So let me check my calendar, because I am going to visit the folks at Daily. I've been summoned summoned, I say, to Nashville by the supreme beings that run the Daily Wire have summoned me to Nashville, and I will be going next week. No, 2 weeks. I'll be here next Thursday, the 19th. But the 26th, I will be in Nashville, presumably to talk about a new series of history things. So, based on the experience that I've already had with the history things and Daily Wire, I'm looking forward to that very much. All right, gang. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time right here on your very own Stratosphere Lounge.